Hello everybody, this is Zachster99. Wanted to go ahead and make another video about this video I did on Friday about the Craigslist robbery, about the 17-year-old kid in Brooklyn, New York, who evidently put a seller of some Air Jordan shoes at gunpoint inside his own SUV, took his shoes, casually walked across the street, and then the 39-year-old victim of the theft decided to take the law into his own hands, turned around his SUV and went and plowed into the 17-year-old and tore his arm off in the process. So got some new information about this scenario that happened on Friday. Scouring the internet, found some more information I want to share with you guys. But I also want to talk about some of these comments this video's gotten. As you can see, it's one of my more popular videos of the past week, where a lot of these videos are getting 20 to 40 views. This one here, over 1,700 views in less than 2 days. So that's a really popular video for a smaller YouTuber like me. But more importantly than the number of views, 67 comments. A lot of people are commenting and, letting me know their thoughts about this particular situation that happened in Brooklyn. So we're going to be back with a lot more right after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. All right, so I want to go ahead and talk about a couple of things. First thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and clear myself up, because in this video here, when I went back and listened to it, I didn't make myself real clear or really well understood towards the end of the video when I was talking about some of the statements made by some of the relatives of the driver of the SUV. So let's go ahead and look at a couple of the comments first. Actually, no. Let's go ahead and talk about a misunderstanding I had. And let's go ahead and look at the first comment here really quick here. As comments load in. One of the first comments I got, or one of the more popular reply to comments, was by Chevy Power Togo. He said, "Zaxter, you're an idiot. You come across highly in favor of the teen monkey criminal." He said the police charged him with having a gun because he did. Otherwise, they could not have charged him in the way that they did. And face the charges may become upgraded from here, if anything else. He also says know the law, or wait to see what happens before you start taking this little punk-ass scumbag side, or saying how you don't believe he was robbed at gunpoint. Now, he's like, how the hell do you know? And why would you not feel sorry for the victim you called a murderer, then changed it to attempted murder? He said, I don't want to hear why, blah, blah, blah. He said, people ask race. Well, the fact is he was black and blue with red highlights. He says, if he had stole food, then I would have taken his side if he would have done this without a gun. He said, in fact, I would have even bought him a month's worth of food myself. He said, but when you steal something like designer brand sneakers, you are the biggest loser and criminal that ever walked the earth. He said he hopes that he doesn't only lose the arm for contributing to further ruining Craigslist millions of love and enjoy, but the fact that this teen was ready to take the life of a nice, hardworking man, victim's life, over a pair of tennis shoes. He said, what kind of monster, selfish loser does such a thing? Obviously him. So obviously, this guy's pretty upset about the stance that I made, or seemed like I made. I want to go ahead and make this understood, though, because I wasn't real clear towards the end of the video when I was, like I said, when I was actually talking about some of the statements made by relatives of the robbery victim, the SUV driver. So my response here to this guy was, just being facetious here, saying that he spelled "you're" wrong. But I said, I just reported the story as I understood it. I think the kid is certainly the first to blame, and I do believe that he threatened the 39-year-old man, Philip Pierre, with a gun. Now, I was pretty quick in this response. Inside the SUV, I believed he put a gun to the man inside the SUV to steal the shoes without paying for them. I said, I think this is pathetic and obviously what started this whole tragic chain of events. And so I went on basically to say here, And I want to go ahead and point this out in the video. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video here. And I believe what I'm looking at is somewhere right here. Here we go. Okay, so let me get rid of this ad here. So right here, you can see... okay. Get going here. Not there. Okay, right here. Okay, so... go back. Go back. Okay. So right here, okay, you can see this is Zachary Sam getting in the SUV. So the seller, Philip Pierre, parks his vehicle. Now keep in mind, this is at 12:39 p.m. And it looks like this camera is like a street camera here. It doesn't look like anybody's actually... I mean, I could be wrong. This could be somebody up in an apartment here filming this out their window. But from what I understand, or what it looks like anyway, not from what I understand, what this looks like is this is one of those street cameras, you know, to record traffic going by for, you know, lots of different reasons. Show weather inclements, you know, what the roads look like, to give people, you know, speeding violations and stuff like that. But right here, you see that Philip Pierre was intending on selling this pair of shoes. Now, a lot of articles on the internet are saying $190 was the agreed upon price, and a lot of articles are saying $490. Well, based on the type of Air Jordan shoes we're talking about here, I have to believe this was a $490 transaction. I mean, I could be wrong, but the kind of shoes that it talks about, looking at different ads on Craigslist and looking at different websites and stuff like that, that's a much more expensive type of shoe. So I'm believing that it's probably the $490, but I could be wrong. I would never buy a pair of shoes that expensive in my life anyway. But you see Philip Pierre right here parking his SUV, and while he's doing it smart to be doing this in broad daylight, why pick a residential street or a street to do this at? You know, if it was me, I've done a lot of Craigslist transactions like this, and I always choose to meet like at a popular gas station or something like that where there's a lot of people walking around, that kind of thing, and I always try to park like right in front of the gas station, not off towards the side or anything like that. I try to pull right in front of the door so that even the cashiers and the people in the store can kind of see, you know, what's going on if anything happens. Another thing I never do is I would never, ever allow somebody to get inside my car. In fact, when I went out to these places alone, I usually lock all my doors besides my driver's side door because I don't want to take a chance of somebody trying to get in. And then another thing too is a lot of times I get out as well. You know, I don't do any kind of transactions inside my car, but if I did do it in my car and the guy was out here or whatever, I would, you know, just do it through the window. But more often than not, I actually get out of the vehicle as well, and I make sure I do it in broad daylight, and I make sure I do it in a busier area. Now, one thing I don't do is I don't meet at like the mall or, you know, Walmart or something like that, someplace really big, because then it's really hard to find each other, you know. But I do try to make sure I do it in broad daylight and like a gas station, a busier gas station, so there's people around. And I would never, ever let some stranger inside my vehicle. And another thing too, I would never try to get in anybody else's vehicle to do a transaction. That's just a big red flag. So to me, that's, you know, that is, what's the word? To me, that's ignorance and not using your common sense on Philip Pierre's part to allow this kid to get in his vehicle and to not even have the doors locked. I mean, I would have had the doors locked at this point. Anyway, you can see what looks like a bag of shoes right here inside of a bag. He lets the guy in, okay? Let's go ahead and play this a little bit longer. Now you see Zachary Sam get in and actually close the door right there. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a zoomed up, where I'm going to zoom up on this window to see if you guys can see anything I can't see. I've already tried to zoom it up and see if I could see anything through the window, like any kind of gun or arm motion or anything like that, but I really couldn't tell, even though it's broad daylight. Just the windows are too dark. You really can't see in there, especially from the distance that this camera is recording this at. So I do believe that Zachary Sam in this situation, though, threatened Philip Pierre, probably with a gun, the gun they found at the scene. Now, they did find a gun at the scene where the teenager was run over. But I do believe that Zachary Sam threatened this guy, probably with a gun, or with a gun that they found at the scene, because otherwise, if he hadn't threatened him in some way, if he just tried to take the shoes without paying for them, there would have been a struggle. You would have seen some kind of a struggle. They would have been fighting over the shoes. You would have seen something besides what you see. So instead, what we see here Instead, what we see here is we see Zachary Sam get inside the vehicle. We see him close the door, and then it cuts to like a minute or two later, and he casually has the bag. He's walking across the street casually thinking nothing of it. And then another 30 seconds later, it skips, and it shows Philip Pierre running him over on the side of the road. So right here, 41:14, 41:15, it's only about 15 seconds later that it takes Philip Pierre to turn around and plow him over. So, that's just crazy. But one of the things I was saying at the end of that video is I was reading statements made by relatives of the Philip Pierre. Somebody had said that the reason he turned his SUV around and came back and plowed into Zachary Sam was because Zachary Sam was pointing the gun at the vehicle as he was driving away. That is what I was saying I do not believe. Zachary Sam already had stolen the shoes. He had what he wanted. What reason would there be for him to be out here pointing the gun at the SUV in front of all the people and spectators in broad daylight for people to see? That would make no sense. So I do not believe that Zachary Sam was sitting here pointing the gun at the SUV, and that's what made the Philip Pierre turn around and come plow into him. I believe what happened is Philip Pierre obviously let the kid get out of his car without getting shot because he had the gun pointed at him. And then at this point, he's mad. Philip Pierre is mad, okay? He's like, that guy just stole a pair of $500 shoes from me, right, without paying for them. He not only that, he probably put a gun to my face. He threatened my life. And it's very likely, in my opinion, that Zachary Sam has probably done this a lot. He's probably done this kind of thing a lot with these kind of transactions. I bet you this is, no telling how much stuff he's stolen in these kind of deals. So this kid's experienced with theft and crime. He's a punk. I believe that. And I find it very likely that while he was inside this vehicle pointing the gun at Philip Pierre, he probably said something like, you try anything, you call the cops, I will hunt you down and kill your family or kill you. Something along those lines was probably said. Absolutely very plausible and very believable. So this guy's not only been robbed of a $500 pair of shoes, he's had his life threatened with a gun pointed at him, and very likely had his family's life threatened. That would tick off almost anybody to be taken like that by some punk thug. So there's no telling what we would have done in the situation if we were in Philip Pierre's shoes. Absolutely, I understand that. And that's where most of the comments are going on this video. Most of the people are feeling sympathy and pity for the driver, not the guy who robbed the shoes and had his arm torn off in the violence. So where does it go from here? What happens next? Well, I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen. I don't know the New York laws. We only have a little bit of information and video to go off of here. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. One thing I do promise to do is I do promise to update everybody on my channel with any updates that I find. And I have another update right here. So let's go ahead and take a look at, I just wanted to go ahead and make myself more understood here. I think the thug punk is responsible for pretty much all this. However, I do believe that you can't just take this kind of thing into your own hands. Philip Pierre obviously had some kind of, either program or Craigslist deal or phone number or something like that he talked to this kid on. He should have taken that to the police and let the police handle it rather than taking the law into his own hands. However, I can certainly sympathize and I can certainly understand why so many people are taking the side of the seller, the victim of the theft. But what I want to do is I want to go ahead and show you guys something here. This is another website that I found that has some more current information. The New York Post, earlier on Saturday, actually said that the teen bandits whose arm was severed when he tried to steal the pair of pricey sneakers at the gunpoint robbery is no longer a one-armed bandit. Sources said Saturday. He's out of surgery, and they've reattached the arm. So he was able to get his arm reattached. How much mobility and how well it functions and stuff like that, we have no idea. That's just information. But his arm was reattached. So another thing here I just want to go ahead and update you guys on. All the other articles that I've seen have said this was a Craigslist transaction, a Craigslist deal. But this one here is the only one that I've seen that said that the deal was actually made where Philip Pierre offered them for sale in a listing in the Wallapop app. Now, I had never heard of the Wallapop app, but after looking at it on Google, it looks like it's an Android phone app for like bigger cities like New York and Los Angeles and Dallas and, you know, really big metropolitan areas. Not an application for like Omaha, Nebraska or smaller areas. So if it is a free application and you can actually look out on your store on your phone and download that, you know, it's kind of like a Craigslist type of an application from what I understand. So that's the only one. That really doesn't matter in the theme of things. It's just interesting to see how different articles are reporting completely different information about where how the transaction took place, and different, you know, things about it. Now, there is some interesting things that I hadn't seen before as well here, and this is a bus driver who lives across the street from what happened. She said, or Alex, this is a guy, I guess. Alex St. Fleur says, I saw a kid under a car, and he's a bus driver. And he says the guy ran him over. He got out. The driver said, he's trying to rob me. He's trying to rob me. And then he said he saw a gun on the floor, and then he saw the arm was on the floor near the gun. And Sam got out from under the car, he said, and ran inside a city bus. He says, everyone is screaming, come back, your arm, you're bleeding too much. And then it says, Sam, that's Zachary Sam, then got off the bus and started running down Avenue M, he said, before finally collapsing in the street. Now, he doesn't say this victim, or witness, this witness here doesn't say anything about what I'd previously read, that the driver of the vehicle, after running him over, chased him down on the bus and pulled him off of the bus. This guy doesn't say that happened. I don't know. I mean, who knows? Let's see here. On Friday afternoon, the bus was pulled over on 80th Street and blood was spattered on its front entrance. So, again, we kind of already knew that. This guy just had his arm tore off. He was obviously bleeding probably pretty profusely out that area where his arm was torn off. So it makes sense that blood would have been spattered all over the front entrance of the bus. Somebody else says, I was walking up the sidewalk and I heard a boom from behind me, said a postal worker who declined to give her name. She decided to just keep moving. I saw somebody run on the bus with a missing arm. Yeah, I can imagine how weird and horrifying this would be to actually see this in person. A lot of people probably would just want to keep walking and just kind of close their eyes and, you know, turn a blind eye to something like this. But I just wanted to go ahead and mainly report this article here because it does say that Zachary Sam had his arm reattached. And you know who's going to end up paying for that bill. That's probably a very expensive emergency hospital bill. You know this punk kid ain't ever going to pay for that. He'd have to rob a hell of a lot of shoes to even pay for that. And even if he had that kind of money, you know damn well he wouldn't even give a dime towards that medical bill. That'll be the taxpayers that'll end up paying for that. So, yeah, absolutely. So I want to go ahead and read some of the other comments here about this because I got some pretty interesting ones right here. So I also want to go ahead and talk about this comment right here because I've actually scoured the internet to see if anything about this comment here was true, and I couldn't find it. But Mattingly23, this is like right after I put this video up. He said, Zaxter99, I'd say that if someone robs someone else with a gun, their life is very much in danger, and they need to realize that before they try such robberies. He said, I'm much more concerned with the victim than the criminal. In this case, the kid, who is more accurately a 17-year-old street thug with no future other than a prison. He said, let's be realistic. also had his gun jam, which means he tried to murder the victim as well. That right here is nothing that I've actually read anywhere on any of the sources that I found. And I've looked at about 40 different websites reading this article. I've never read anything saying that they found the gun jammed, or that, when they compensated the gun on the street, that they found the gun in a jammed state. Nothing like that at all. So this right here is a rumor until somebody can actually provide me with a link stating that this gun was in a jammed state when they recovered it, or something along those lines. So, you get these stories, and then you get people adding this and that, and adding a little bit of, adding a little bit more, and this looks like that kind of a thing where people are just kind of adding their own little thing to it. I'm not saying this guy added that to it, but maybe he misunderstood, or he heard it from somebody else. I don't know. Or maybe it's actually true. I don't know. But I haven't read anything like that on any article that I found. If you guys know more information than what I'm reporting, please put it down in the comments below. I certainly would appreciate that. Let's see here. Anyway, Chevy Power, the guy who called me an idiot, looks like he deleted some of these comments. Yeah, he edited and deleted some of these comments, but he went back and basically said he apologized for calling me a name, and said thank you for actually basically, rewording my understanding of what happened. So why he edited these and changed that to just periods, I don't know. Anyway, the Loop 763 said he's lucky the police in New York City didn't get there first. He would have lost more than an arm. And Glenn Thomas says only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is with an SUV for this guy. Kid got what he deserved. That's kind of how a lot of people feel. This guy here says, how many people would have done the same thing? It's just that many robbery victims are not privileged to have the assailant in the path of their vehicle. He said, I hate people sometimes too quick to judge situations they themselves couldn't know what actions they would have taken. Certainly agree with that. Now, this guy here, Shoe Nice Deleted Video, says if a cop had run him over, there'd be no charges pressed. Well, that's a funny statement. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it is pretty funny. Jay Donovan had a good statement here. He said if he had shot the seller, all this sympathy would have gone out the window. Kid should have died right there. He probably robbed countless people prior to this. Absolutely agree. And he says, rob for food, maybe I can understand, but shoes, hell no. And I absolutely agree with that. Tom Hudson says, not exactly a kid anymore at 17. He got what he deserved. No sympathy for him. And Neith says the driver did first try and scam the teenager. So Neith is basically saying that the driver is trying to scam the teenager by charging him too much for the shoes, is what I'm understanding. Doesn't matter. The guy, obviously agreed to that price, agreed to meet him at that price, and agreed to pay him that amount of money. So that is not a scam. I don't agree with that first part here, Neith. He says, but that doesn't justify the teenager pulling a gun out at all. Absolutely correct there. It doesn't, no matter what the price is, it doesn't justify that. He says they're both idiots who act before they think. He said, but the driver's the bigger idiot. It took him 15 seconds to turn that car around and ram it into the back of the teenager. We saw that above earlier when I actually showed the clock. He says he wasn't in any danger. No one else was panicking. They would have if the teenager had his gun out. He said, but the teenager was leaving, and Philip Pierre had all the contact details he needed to give to the cops. But instead, he tried to stop the teenager, more or less in his own words, for the cops. Basically, he took the law into his own hands. Absolutely. He said, sheesh, any idiot can figure out 3 seconds an SUV will maim a human body, possibly kill it. And he said, and what the teenager had turned around and shot him through the windscreen and killed him? Or if he'd killed the teenager? Absolutely a good point. I mean, what if the teenager, instead of running, had pointed the gun at the driver and shot him and killed him? He could have got himself killed. He says, I don't feel any sympathy for the driver at all. He should have accepted that he lost at the scam and called the cops if he felt the teen was a threat. Well, he wasn't thinking, obviously. I'm sure he's a smart enough guy that if he would have thought about it and calmed down, he would have called the cops. But, I can imagine in New York City, he probably thought that if I call the cops, this punk's going to get away, and the cops are never going to be here before this kid gets away with my shoes. And not only that, no telling what the kid threatened him with or how he threatened him inside that SUV. So if he threatened his family and stuff like that, I can kind of understand the anger that might have been behind Philip Nier. This guy says the kid had it coming. If I got robbed of a $400 item and the thief was walking away casually like that, I'd do the same thing the driver did. Couldn't go home and eat dinner after getting burnt for $400. Fuck that. Can certainly understand and agree with that, and a lot of people have, with 7 thumbs up on that. The same guy that posted up here said, no, the driver's the idiot. Telling the kid online it's $190, taking that, and then when the kid comes to pick up the shoes, demanding another $300 on the spot. Again, here we go. We don't know any of this. That's making assumptions and adding to the story. We don't know that they agreed at $190, but then at the meeting point, he asked for another $300, once they met. I don't believe that at all. That's just adding stuff to the story that's not there. You don't know that happened. I doubt very seriously that is what happened. Anyway, he says the teenager's as much of an idiot, but they're both idiots together. I will kind of agree with that. The driver's the one who decided to take it further and take the law into his own hands. Absolutely agree with that on Neith's part. He said he'll pay, and I don't feel sympathy for him at all. He lost at his scam, so tough cookies. He can scam another person another day. So I think Keith is way too hard on the driver here, saying that the driver is trying to rip off the teenager here. I believe that the punk kid would have agreed to any price just to try to steal the shoes. I don't think this has anything to do with it, and I think this guy is just, he's misunderstanding or just making stuff up or heard something else, but that's not part of any story. It's just the fact that different articles, depending on the article you read, some of them say $190 and some of them say the agreed upon price was $490. So different information on different websites are causing that misunderstanding right there, is the way I see it anyway. Trey T says, I hope it's the arm he used to hold the gun that got torn off. Wow. And Leslie says, more good scum getting exactly what they deserve. Doesn't matter if you're a measly kid. If you commit a crime, you get served some justice. That severed arm should have been shoved up his ass as karmic payback. That's funny. So not only does Leslie think that he should have lost his arm, she thinks that arm should have been shoved up his ass rather than sewn back on. That's pretty amusing. But yeah, people, I just want to go ahead and make it clear that, I'm really just trying to report what happened because nobody else really talked about this, on YouTube. And I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I definitely am much more in favor of the 39-year-old. I don't agree with what he did, but I hope his punishment isn't nearly as severe as the punishment they dished out to Zachary Sam. I hope this kid gets 10 years in prison. And I do think that the driver should probably get a year to 3 years, something like that. I don't think he should get away scot-free because that's going to tell people, hey, you ever feel like you get scammed by, in a deal on Craigslist or whatever, just run the person over, just kill him. You can't take law into your own hands like that. This guy needs to have some kind of punishment. But I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 3 years would be fair for the driver here. Because, again, he did run the kid over trying to kill him. It looks like he was trying to kill him. At the speed he hit him, he could have very well have killed the kid. So you can't just murder somebody, even if you're threatened like that. Now, a lot of people say that if the kid had threatened his family and stuff like that inside the SUV, it's self-defense. I don't think that applies here because they were not at the residence of this seller. Had they been at this guy's house, then it could have been self-defense. But out here in the public, the kid was already away from the vehicle. He was no longer a threat. Yeah, he had robbed the shoes, but I don't believe this kid was a threat anymore at that point, so you can't just turn your vehicle around and go and ram him like that. That's taking the law into your own hands. That's vigilante type stuff. That's stuff you see in the movies. Yeah, we see that kind of stuff in The Walking Dead, and we hoop and holler when that kind of stuff happens. It's exciting to watch. I know this was an entertaining story, but you can't do that, and that Philip Pierre needs to have some kind of punishment. But I do think that this guy here is the punk. He's the one that caused all this to happen. He's probably the one that threatened this guy, threatened his family perhaps. Who knows? So this little guy, I hope he does at least 10 years. I don't think he'll learn a lesson because he's had his arm sewed back on. I don't think he'll learn. I think he'll continue to do the same crap. Who knows? I don't know. But I do hope that the thug here gets more prison time than Philip Pierre in this situation. So I'm going to cross my fingers based on that. And I want to know what you guys have to say. As I end this video, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a close-up, zoomed in video of when Zachary Sam gets into the car, and see if you guys can see anything like a gun being pointed or anything that makes you guys think, So, play it in slow motion, look at it frame by frame, whatever you want to do. I'll put it in slow motion, zoom up on the window, see if you guys can see anything. But, make your own assumptions. Give me your comments down below. I want to know if there's anybody else out there that feels sorry for the kid or thinks anything else. Be sure you put your comments, whatever they are, down below. I certainly want to go and thank you guys for watching. This has been Zachster99. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you in the next video.